Good morning, everyone. It is still morning here in Joburg. I'll start off pretty simply by turning on my clicker. Very simple question. Who am I? My name is Lucky Nkosi, and since Lyle decided to tell you that he's speaking to you from Cape Town, I'll start off by telling you that I'm currently speaking from BBD's head offices in Joburg, right here in South Africa. And here in Joburg, I work for a company called BBD Software Development, started by three visionaries almost 40 years ago. At BBD, my role is slightly different from most people. I say this because I work in a unique team known as ATC. We're responsible for BBD's research and development functions. We do some specialized consulting. But I think one of the most fulfilling things about our job is that we're also responsible for facilitating learning or upskilling BBD's 800 plus employees spread all over the globe. I say it's the most fulfilling because education is important to me and I absolutely love it. To further fuel this, I am a perpetual student of Wits University's Digital Arts department, and I've also taught a couple of courses there. Now, my talk is going to be slightly different from Ashwani. Ashwani is probably going to dive very deep into some of the complexities of cloud migration and give you some really, really useful things. Mine is going to be somewhat slightly different because I'm going to focus on one thing, and that is myself. I'm going to tell you a whole lot about myself. Since today's Thursday, I'll begin with a bit of a throwback. I'll start off by telling you about the beginning of my journey into software development. My road was slightly different from most people because you see, my post-school journey started with me ending up in the South African Air Force. They had a program called Siandiza, which was aimed at identifying high school youth that are interested in aviation and trying to get them before they go into tertiary education. This program had some physical training aspects. There were some psychometric evaluations, some flight simulations, and of course, the most challenging for someone like me, height assessments as well. I did pass all of them, luckily enough, but at the end of my high school year, when I was actually supposed to start in the Air Force, I was faced with something that we've all become too familiar with. They had misplaced my documents, which meant that my journey into getting into the Air Force would now be delayed by at least 6 months. Luckily for me, I'd recently been invited to an interview at Wits, and I was given an opportunity to study this brand new degree that was put together by the Wits School of Art and the Wits School of Electrical Engineering called Game Design. I went on to complete that degree, and then I started working at BBD. Came into BBD as a newbie, and from day one, all of my seniors threw all of this jargon at me. I was told about APIs and endpoints and repositories and builds and pull requests, all of these things that absolutely blew my mind away. One of the most memorable things about my time when I started was that I sat next to this really old colleague of mine named Tom Lopsher. And he told me lots and lots of stories, including about how he used to party in Hillbrow for just a few rands and how he used to have a 2 rand note. He even told me stories about how he used to work as something called a computer operator. Absolutely blew my mind. The one thing that really blew my mind was when he told me that he used to use something called punch cards to code. I still don't fully understand how this works, especially as someone who's never even used a floppy disk in their lives. This blew my mind. I gained responsibilities quite quickly, so I had to learn how the different blocks of the software development lifecycle worked. This included deployments. This fascinated me. Up to that point, I'd always just written code that just did a very simple task. I had no idea how the users we're building this for actually ended up receiving this thing. For the first few months, all I did was copy my build onto a folder that we used to call contents of CD. One day, after a short session at the BBD bar, I went to my tech lead and I said, why do we call that folder on the shared drive contents of CD? He went on to explain that we were maintaining a relatively old system and that when the system started, they'd come up with this brilliant way of deploying, where they would actually take the contents of that CD and burn them to an actual physical CD. Someone would then get into a car and drive to our client's offices, hand them a copy, and then it would be the client's responsibility to distribute that to all of their branches. I laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed at all of the inefficiencies that were involved in this. And I'm sure that you're probably chuckling at this as well. In hindsight, you can look back and laugh at how inefficient this was because technology has come a long way. All of these deployments and all of these things around the internet have become such a fundamental part of how we operate that we are now able to look back and laugh. We can look back and be amazed at all of this. In September of 2019, BBD held its annual tech conference. We call it Escape. It was an in-person conference. We held it here in Rosebank in Johannesburg, one location. Not a single person had a mask on. Everyone was laughing with their mouths wide open without a care about how our breath smelled. We shoved people as we laughed and they shoved us back. And we gave the speakers on stage room-shaking applause, amazed at the incredible talks and jokes that they delivered on stage. We started off the day with something that these days maybe isn't such a hot topic, but back then it was definitely a big talking point. At that stage, you could not walk past a futurist without hearing the words Industry 4.0 or Fourth Industrial Revolution. You're probably sitting there right now going, oh my God, buzzwords. Surely you didn't think you'd come to a tech talk and not hear a few buzzwords at least. That morning, I watched and nodded in agreement as our CIO, Mr. Tony van der Linden, stood on that stage and said something contentious enough it would make most consultancies cringe. He said that he did not believe that we were experiencing the fourth industrial revolution. He went on to argue that the hype that's created around Industry 4.0 was influencing our beliefs and that the continuous change around us is fueling our experiences. He concluded by saying that all we were left with was a perspective of a life-changing event, a revolution, if you will. Rewatching Tony's talk in preparation for this event made me remember my days as a student leader, particularly around 2015 during the first Fees Must Fall protests. It made me reflect on my experiences, and it made me ask a very crucial question. Why on earth did we believe that we were in the middle of a revolution? We truly believed that we were going to change the landscape of education, not only in South Africa, but the world as a whole. While a number of small victories came out of the Fees Must Fall protests, largely at an institutional level, I think it's safe to say that not much has changed at the core issue of funding tertiary education. So again, why on earth did we think that we were in the middle of this? If we stop for a second and consider what a revolution is, maybe this might help us understand. We might understand why the world has been feeling that we were going through this fourth industrial revolution, why university students of 2015 and 2016 felt that they were going through this revolution, and perhaps even why last year around June, the country felt that we were going through a revolution when violence and riots broke out in Gauteng and KZN. A simple definition of a revolution requires us to look at the core components of what makes up a revolution. First, revolution is about change, but the change must be radical. When we look at the fourth industrial revolution, absolutely, some industries have seen radical change. But when we look at Fees Must Fall, we could argue that what the students aimed to change was fundamentally different, was a radical difference rather, and that the tactics that were employed were also quite radical. The riots themselves as well, they were radical. They made us sit up, listen, and focus and see what on earth was happening. They disrupted how we did things. The second thing is that there must be a fundamental shift in how things are done. That is, after that one point, that one thing can never be the same ever again. When we look at the fourth industrial revolution, absolutely, a number of industries are not the same after we've introduced all of these technologies. Fees Must Fall sought to have fundamental change in how we do things. It sought to change how we saw education for the country and how we need to fund it as a country. But the riots themselves opportunistically leveraged off a genuine cause of unemployment being at crisis level to force the state's hand rather on one very simple issue. Thirdly, it must be sudden. There was nothing sudden about the fourth industrial revolution, except maybe that we suddenly realized that we had experienced some change. Fees Must Fall, I would argue that wasn't sudden either, because from my first year in university, Every single year between January and February, there were protests for the exact same thing: to limit fee increases and to waiver these registration fees. But the riots themselves, some would argue that they were sudden because none of us actually believed that the Concord would make that ruling. Last, and probably most importantly, there must be actual change. As we said, fourth industrial revolution absolutely changed the way we do things. Fees must fall had no change in our funding models. And after the riots, after we rebuilt, everything is as it was before they started. From a tech perspective, and specifically IR4, we felt that we were in the middle of this life-changing event, this revolution, because our senses were being overwhelmed by the plethora of developments in technology. While it's seemingly easy to recognize change in everyday things like the sport of golf or motorized bicycles, digital technology's lack of dependence on substantial physical space and its inherent ease of shareability makes its development faster than anything we've ever experienced. But while we were seeing these massive improvements and developments in technology, we were still missing that core ingredient of radical change that fundamentally changes the way we do things. And while we smoked our pipes theorizing in our tedious and pompous manner about the fundamental impacts of the fourth industrial revolution, the unthinkable happened. We were struck by an infectious disease that caused a global pandemic on a scale that we haven't seen in a century. Life as we know it came to a complete halt, and this world that we had built and convinced ourselves would not stop for anything at all did just that. It stopped. Suddenly, we were faced with unprecedented times. And in accordance with global best practices, the president told us that we would be in lockdown for 21 days. 679 days later, today we note that the pandemic has had dire consequences for a number of people. The socio-economic impact of the lockdown has been absolutely catastrophic, with rates of unemployment hitting records and crisis highs. Worst of all, we ran out of beer for a while, and some people started making pineapple beer. While we mourn those that we have lost and we do our best to comfort the ones that they've left behind, we note that the lockdown might have had some interesting side effects. We have all lived through this pandemic. We have all witnessed and experienced its impacts, its ups and its horrible downs. And we are all experts of our own lived experiences and perceptions of this pandemic. This is, however, not necessarily what I want to focus on today. Today, I want to look to the future just a bit more. The lockdown changed a number of things, from how we bank, how we socialize, how we seek and receive medical attention, how we celebrate, and even how we mourn. The development in computer-related technologies helped facilitate pandemic responses, from coordinating emergency response efforts to helping us get to vaccines faster by being able to analyze and process data faster than we've ever been able to before. It helped keep people informed, connected to each other, it sped up triage, and even delivered medicine and medical services more efficiently. Technology helped us survive and helped others even thrive in very tumultuous times. I recall during the second wave in 2020, I'd lost quite a few family members to COVID, and soon after one of the funerals, I caught it myself. Until that point, I was convinced that man flu was the worst thing you could get, but COVID proved me wrong. My doctor was able to consult with me every single day on WhatsApp and where necessary using video call. She was able to tell the pharmacist what medication I needed, and he was able to deliver that medication to me, all without us needing to have any contact with each other. With COVID, we've experienced the seismic shift, the seismic event that has fundamentally changed how we do things or how we perceive we can do things. So potentially forever. If we combine this with the massive exponential industrial developments of the last decade or so, it's only now that I think we can start talking about revolution. Whether we believe that we have now crossed that line of revolution or not is inconsequential in this context. However, we now have to ask a very key question, a question that's on everyone's mind in one way or another, a question that futurists and tech evangelists capitalize on by punting their solutions and methodologies as the best way to deal with it. It's a very simple question. The question is, now what? Will we ever shake hands again? Will we wear masks when we have a cold from now on? Will we ever have parties that last all night until 6 o'clock in the morning? Will we ever work from the office on a full-time basis again? Just this morning, I walked into the office and I wasn't sure whether I could shake people's hands or fist pump them or hug them. The answers to these questions are complex. But as tech professionals, we have the responsibility to ask this very same question, but in a slightly different context, a more nuanced context rather, if you will. We have to ask, how does COVID affect our fields? And what do we have to do differently in the short to medium and long term? Well, where do we even begin? A look at the client and consumer tech trends provides a decent starting point. And I think there's one term that can summarize the changes that we're noticing. The term is digital transformation. Yes, absolutely. Tech evangelists have punted the term for a long time, but it does explain what we're witnessing. We need, however, a much more granular approach to understanding what we're seeing. So Forbes put together a council of technology experts from across the globe, and they came up with a list of 14 tech trends that they think are here to stay. I want to talk about some of these and maybe combine some of the related ones. I'll start off with digital transaction. We know that many industries across the world are focusing on adopting digital payments. Pat Kinzel, the founder and COO of Notarize, notes that a tech trend that will soon shake things up for consumers will be the rise of digital transactions as a necessity, not just a convenience. Just last year, when I had to renew my driver's license, this was before the one driver's license printing machine in the country broke down, I saw a notice at the traffic department saying that they will not accept cash payments. I'm assuming that this was to limit contact, but we in developing countries are not there yet because we have a large informal sector that largely deals with cash. So despite the site being there, I saw the cashier actually accepting cash payments right on the day. However, even though we've got this large informal sector, the rise of products and services in South Africa provided by the likes of Yoko and Yokokam machines are playing a fundamental role in enabling the sector to use digital transactions. Just last week, I saw FNB advertising a similar product. The growth of small-scale, focused online stores is another indication of this. If you go on Instagram, you will see a long list of people having these online stores that sell very specific things like Speedos and fancy caps. As Pat Kinzel puts it, 2020 proved that digital transactions can be safe, secure, and therefore there's no going back to fully in-person or paper-based transactions. The second thing, and slightly related, is fintech. Vikram Srivats, the VP of Go-to-Market and GM of Americas at Wavemaker, suggests that consumers are using new ways to do their banking, pay bills, and invest. They do all of this without setting a foot in a bank. I think this is something we can all relate to. If we look at the local context, in 2020, we saw companies like Old Mutual launch WhatsApp services that allowed their customers to put in and process claims. I'm assuming that this was largely done to limit branch traffic, but the convenience that these services brought to their customers positioned them to be key channels of engagements well into the future. If we look at telehealth, the health sector as we know it, and as I've just anecdotally told you, it had to change how it did things. This industry largely relied on in-person physical contact, but it was forced to change. On a slightly related note, we have health wearables. These have increased. This combined with telehealth makes for a very interesting topic. These devices help produce critical information that health professionals can use to understand their patients better. This, coupled with the lockdown, meant that people invested more in these devices, especially because people had to be quite creative about their exercise during that lockdown. I saw people lifting their ironing boards and their pads to their partners. Everyone started focusing more on this. One of my favorite topics is improved connectivity. We all have borne witness to what some might call the 5G war. I used to be one of those developers that said, I will never use Apple devices because I'm a real technologist. I want to customize all of my experiences. And I was a massive Huawei fanboy until they lost Google Mobile Services. For the past year, I haven't been able to cast onto my TV from my phone. And it's frustrated me so much that I've now had to switch devices. When BBD had to go fully remote last year, or 2 years ago, we were able to do that quite quickly. But we had to make sure that everyone can connect and work from their homes. For some people, this was already in place, but for others, we had to make a plan. Fortunately for us, in late 2019, Rain had just launched its services, and so we were able to do that quite quickly. But while Rain continues to expand its 5G infrastructure across Soweto, Tembisa, and other townships, we see companies like Vumatel laying down fiber optic cables in Soweto and surrounding areas. Just last week, my mother called me and said her friend has faster internet, and it's because she has something called fiber, and that I need to make sure that I put fiber into her house. What's amazing to see, though, is how both providers are providing low-cost, uncapped, prepaid options, all for under 500 rands. This frees customers from lengthy commitments that comes with contracts, and this ultimately increases the rate of adoption of digital technologies. The state, which is often a key role player in societal developments, also seems to be realizing this. And they're now starting to reinstate some of the free Wi-Fi services across some of the metros. If you consider the fact that Soweto alone has 3 times the population of Botswana, this means that having more people means more business opportunities for all of us in the tech sector and for any sector that relies on technology. Talking about homes, we saw a rise in home automation. With everyone spending more time at home, people are realizing just how much they have invested into their homes. When we started working remotely, we got requests to subsidize chairs, tables, chocolates, and some people even realized that they were making their families drink really subpar coffee. And so they even started asking us to ship them some of the office coffee. The IDC, according to the IDC, worldwide shipments of smart home devices surpassed 801 million units in 2020. This was almost a 5% increase from the previous year. This increase is forecasted to double or to go into double digits by next year. All of these previously listed tech trends form the bedrock for the gig economy. With the current youth unemployment rates in South Africa hitting crisis levels, a lot of key stakeholders will try to create those employment opportunities. But unfortunately, because a lot of these will rely on metrics and numbers to measure their success, very few of them will be permanent opportunities. And a lot of them will be gig opportunities rather. So what does this mean for all of us? Now that we know all of these tech trends, we need to understand how they affect us and all of the different industries that we operate in. So the question then is, what do all of these tech trends or all of these technologies have in common? The answer is simple: data. They all have data at the core of it. All of these technologies require more and more access to people's data. And unfortunately, the data that it requires access to is personal and sensitive in nature. If we think of historical transactions, they often only had 2 partners. They had you, the customer, and the service provider, a bank, for example. The transaction or the passing of this personal data often happened between these 2 parties. As soon as I hand that document across that bulletproof window, it's now the bank's responsibility to make sure of it. The more we build technology to facilitate this transaction, it means that we as technologists, become custodians of the sensitive information. Why is this such a crucial thing to note? It's because data is now one of the most valuable commodities in the entire world, more valuable than oil. Think about that for a second. All of the biggest companies in the world are companies that store large amounts of data from their users. At first, when these companies came on the scene, the users were excited. Everything is free. But now users are wiser. They understand that they're paying for these, and they understand the value of the data that they're giving to these companies. The newfound understanding of the value of their data is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's good because as service providers, we're forced to build better experiences and better value. But it also means that the attacks that we see will increase. According to Checkpoint's media security report, the frequency of ransomware attack increased dramatically over the past year, with 93% more attacks carried out in the first half of 2021 than over the same period in the previous year. Along with ransomware attacks, Organizations have also experienced a 29% increase in the number of cyber attacks globally, the highest growth being in Europe, Middle East, and of course, our African region. These attacks have dire consequences to individuals and organizations being attacked, but those consequences seep out into society at large. A ransomware attack just a few months ago on the US Colonial Pipeline caused a 6-day shutdown of the company's operations. This in turn forced the public into panic buying, resulting in fuel shortages in some parts of the US. This led to disruptions of essential services like firefighters and ambulances because their cars just didn't have petrol. Here's another one. In South Africa, we had the Department of Justice that was hacked just a few months ago as well. McKinsey & Co. released a survey, global survey of executives. And they concluded that companies have accelerated the digitization of their customer and supply chain interactions by 3 to 4 years. That means where they expected to be and where they planned to be in 4 years, they were forced to accelerate and bring that to today. They also concluded that the share of their digital and digitally enabled offerings in their portfolios has accelerated by a shocking 7 years. Where they expected their assets in their portfolio to be digital in 7 years, they've been forced to bring that up now. What does all of this information mean for all of us on this call? It means that regardless of the sector that you operate in, regardless of the industry that you operate in, your clients and your customers will demand you to have systems that have security at the core, they have privacy at core, systems that scale. Because as they come in numbers, they still expect it to work. They expect good user interfaces, user experience, they expect it to be performant, and they expect all of this to happen very fast. I'm a web developer. It's one of my core tech specialties. And the web used to be notorious for being unreliable, safe, and lacking. I hate apps. I hate the fact that I need to download an app just to use it once. So I love the web because it's commitment free. So in my spare time, I build ridiculous things to prove that everyone should be building everything on the web browser. My colleagues make fun of me because of this. And so one day, a couple of months ago, about 2 months ago, I got a call from Tony, our CIO. He said, please come to the office. I want to talk to you. I was a bit anxious, but when I entered, he started the conversation with, picture this. He went on to explain a streaming app with all features, which included being able to ask it a question, and then our app should be able to understand the human language and answer you, and even provide you content to support our answer. He topped it all off just to entice me even further by saying, all of this in a browser. Despite me being suspicious of why he would call me all the way to the office just to tell me this, I said, cool, this is amazing. True to being a good project manager, he waited for me to say all of that before explaining that we now as a company didn't have much experience in video on demand development, and that we needed to build a proof of concept for this wonderful app that he's told me about. Of course, being the dev that I am, I excitedly said, absolutely, I can do this. I'm sure I can figure out a way. He said, cool, we need this in about 2 days. So working with a colleague of mine, Rob, we sought out to do this, despite us being absolutely terrified. So before I explain further, I think it's important for us to have a very simple walkthrough as to what video on demand is and how it differs from the old school video play. So ordinary videos are served or sent to a user's computer as one giant file. It's literally one line of code. We say, here's a video. The user's device will then download that entire video, and once it's ready, the user can press play. This doesn't work in the video on demand sectors because for a lot of companies, the video is their business. We look at applications such as Showmax, DSTV Now, Netflix, and the likes. We can't ship all of that stuff down to a user because we need that user to continuously come back to our services in order for us to generate our revenue. And so video on demand requires us to do something slightly different. Let's take a look at the most popular video on demand platform, YouTube. If you hover to the bottom of any YouTube video, you'll see quite a few things at the bottom of the screen. When you play a video, the progress bar will show you three pieces of information. The first, it's very light gray, almost transparent, will show you the length of that video. The second is a red, almost highlighting, which shows you the progress that you've played at this point. The second one, that's in between those two colors, is a light gray that shows you how much of the video has been downloaded onto your computer. What this means is that we need to be able to download this video in tiny bits that we call chunks. These chunks can be 2 seconds, 4 seconds long, which means that for a 3-hour movie, we need to continuously download them in tiny chunks and then stitch them up together on the front end to give you a seamless experience. Say you're watching your favorite movie. You can decide what movie that is. And your son or your brother decides to go online and start playing these weird games that hog your internet. Your internet quality drops. We can't just stop the video there. We need to be able to pick up that there's a network change. We then need to adapt to that and show you perhaps a lesser quality video, but while making sure that your watching is not actually disrupted. We also want to give our users agency. So we also need to be able to give our users the ability to change the quality of the video that they want to watch. What this means is that from the video that we serve, we need to be able to see, okay, the network is dropped, let's fetch a lower quality video. It's back up, let's fetch a higher quality video. To do this, we need to take our video input, chop it up into different video qualities and store them somewhere. That's a lot of data to store on our servers. I also have no experience in creating videos, so I have no idea how to turn a low quality video into a high quality video. Of course, like most people, I was faced with a problem and I did what most people do when they have a problem. I looked up and asked for a solution, and the cloud provided. I looked to AWS and they had a service called Elemental Media Convert. This service is able to take a video source, chop it up for you into these different quality videos, and then store them on a location. We were able to use the S3 bucket to store all of these videos. One of the requirements here was that our users, the users of this application, would be distributed across the world, which meant that we needed to get the videos physically closer to them via a content delivery network. Slap CloudFront in front of that, and we were able to have the CDN in a matter of minutes. The second requirement, which I expected to be the most challenging, was live streaming. Our client needed to be able to broadcast live onto this platform. And so again, for that, I looked to AWS. And of course, they had a service called Media Live, which would do everything I've just described almost in real time. They would take this camera feed, be able to chop it up for me and give it to me using different protocols, depending on what I needed. And again, I could put this on an S3 bucket, on a CDN, and be able to distribute it globally. What we ended up with in a day and a half is the streaming platform, all running in the browser, which is able to do video on demand, was able to adapt to things, and were able to present it to client on time. What we achieved here, I think, was incredible. We were able to deliver the streaming web app with user control, with adaptive bitrate changes, user bitrate changes, video on demand, live TV. It was scalable. We could grow this thing. It was secure, and we did all of this quickly with a team of just 2 engineers. This would have been impossible without AWS Elemental, and that's a fact. Earlier on, I've argued that we've gone through a revolution of sort, where people and industries have seen that things can be done differently. The technology has a critical role to play in delivering goods and services. That this can be done quickly, conveniently, and securely. We ran this demo for an entire day and streamed footage from one of our offices, common spaces. The total cost of this entire exercise was under $15 US. A server would have cost us way more time, way more money. Earlier on in this talk, I spoke about our tech conference called Escape and how our CIO rather spoke about Fourth Industrial Revolution. In last year's installation, we announced that people should go to our online learning platform to go and get some prizes. Now, BBD has just under 900 employees, but what we didn't anticipate was that people would use multiple devices in order to try and increase their chances. So at just over 3,500 concurrent users, our app went down. In less than 10 minutes, we were able to triage the problem, scale up, and bring the entire system back up. Are you confident that your platforms can do the same? The time for waiting days, weeks, and months to commission a server and be worried about whether Ascom is reliable enough and your backup generators can support you is long gone. The success of any organization that needs to operate in the digital space will strongly be impacted by how fast and securely they can provide their services. I spoke about how we used to burn EXEs to disk and drive them to our clients for deployment. And now we can laugh at that idea. Very soon, the idea of managing your own servers will be just as laughable. VPNs drive me insane. I absolutely hate them. We go through all of that just to access a resource. And I think it's largely because we don't even trust our own security. But we need them because security is important. Cloud service providers have spent billions of dollars in investments and implementation, in research and implementation. I say just let it be their problem. Cloud technology is not the future, it's the present. Migrating to the cloud, like every other change, is difficult, but its benefits way outweigh the challenges. We also call it a journey because we don't do it overnight. We can't. You need to lean on the professionals at your disposal. And to the tech professionals, you need to lean on your tools to make this thing easy. Your customers and your users don't care the fact that you manage your own service. They don't care about the effort that you put in to providing that service. What they care about is the value that your service gives them. So focus on what matters, the value that you deliver to your customers and clients. I began this talk by telling you how I ended up in software development due to a clerical error in the South African Air Force. That administrative mistake led to me not being able to join the Air Force. It had life-changing consequences for me. Fortunately for me, I think things turned out well, but others may not just be as lucky. All of you sitting here represent organizations on whose shoulders the very survival of this country relies on. And unreliable systems could mean dire consequences for people, organizations, and the country as a whole. We've moved from coding to punch cards to having over 700 programming languages globally. The change is inevitable. When you go back to your work, you need to ask yourself if you're doing everything in your role to ensure that you enable your organization to deliver services quickly, cost-effectively, securely, and reliably. Because today is Thursday, and we normally celebrate Thursdays by reflecting on the past week, I think everyone needs to take a moment and sit down to reflect on what you need to change to bring your organization into the present and start preparing for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucky, for very interesting presentation. Very, very, very interesting. Thank you for that. Right. So, look, let me start here now. So, first, quick introduction about myself. So, my name is Ashwani Kumar. I'm business development lead in AWS here, based in London. So, warm greetings from a sunny London, if you like. So, I'm really excited to be here today. What I'm planning to do is to share with you insight into a very exciting and strategic program we have called Migration Acceleration Program. We just heard from Lucky, how the technology has evolved, and we all know cloud is right in the middle of all the digital transformation happening at the moment, and the various drivers which are leading into give you the business benefit your organization are needing for. So in that context, it's a nice segue for me to introduce you this program we have. I'm going to share my screen quickly I've got a few slides here. I'm going to take next few minutes to kind of walk you through these, what the program is all about and how it could help you in your organization journey into AWS Cloud to realize the benefits your organization are looking for. So I'm going to share my screen now. Awesome. Right. Can someone confirm you're able to see my screen, right?
Yes, Ashwani, we can.
Awesome, brilliant. Right, so going to talk about the program named Migration Acceleration Program. We also love to call it MAP. It's a global program. It's a program which has been designed by leveraging our hands-on experience of helping hundreds of enterprises across the globe to and thousands of workloads into AWS. So we have packaged that into like a best practices model, if you like. So this is what I'm gonna explain about what this program is all about. Um, right. So my background, just to give a bit more about my experience as well. So in my current role, I'm helping customers to realize the business benefits using this program. But my background is consulting. So I come from helping customers shape up their cloud migration and modernization strategy, helping them realize the business benefits. So I've been lucky enough to work across what I call the entire value chain of consulting, helping setting the strategy and also helping setting the program to realize the business benefit. So this helps me to kind of connect better with the customers to kind of look at this journey more end to end. So moving on, right? So this next chart here I got is really bit of a context setting, right? These are some of the key business drivers we are noticing why the organizations are looking to move into AWS cloud and, to be honest, cloud in general. And the way to look at this is I normally categorize these business drivers into two buckets. One is the more immediate tactical business needs your organization may have, and two is the more forward-looking, more strategic business direction your business wants to take, your organization wants to take. So in the first category, if you like, the tactical business needs, you may be running some application hardware and software which are either at running at end of life or already at end of life. So you're carrying some business and operational risk which you want to address. You may be data center exit or consolidation is a classic one. This is another. You may be running against a timeline to meet those exit timelines. And then in the more forward looking ones, you may be looking to grow your business within your region or global. So you have a business expansion plan. We all know cloud is a big enabler in the digital transformation, and or you may be looking to leverage some of the more latest technology stacks like artificial intelligence or machine learning. And cost reductions remains a topic of interest with all the senior execs I'm talking to, and more so now in the given pandemic situation we live in. So I think to summarize this, right? So while there could be various compelling events for you to move into cloud, and cost objectives and target dates to exit your and consolidate data center remains. But I think the conversation is changing now. The more and more senior exec, the board of directors are looking for more than just cost savings and efficiency. They while moving into AWS cloud does helps to reduce the cost by 25 to 50%. But I think the senior business executives are looking for more capability to move faster, transform the customer experiences, deliver digital transformation, as I said earlier, modernizing the business. So they're looking for more than the efficiency, more than the cost saving. They're looking for opportunity to reinvest this cost saving by moving to cloud into drive more innovation and business model. So this is a wholesome conversation of the cloud transformation is changing now. It is more going to be more and more business focused, while they will still be focused on the immediate cost saving and the technology rescue, addressing the technology risk you're taking at the moment. So this is to really do that initial context setting. So this is not a comprehensive list of business drivers. This is some of the key ones we are noticing when we're talking to our customers. So now, so moving on. So this chart here shows some of the cost savings, or some of the kind of key business outcomes the cloud migration is helping to achieve. Now, one thing to notice is you want to do a cloud migration journey, just focus on certain business outcomes. You don't want to get onto a cloud migration journey because everyone else is going through that. So you have to be very conscious that you want to define your business outcomes, what you're trying to achieve, and then align your cloud migration and modernization journey accordingly. So these are some of the numbers from independent IDC analysis. As you can see here, the moving into AWS cloud, it helping cost saving over 31% on infrastructure spend, and many more. So it is very important. The message here is really important to define your business outcome, what you're trying to achieve, and then underpin them with a succinct program and a structured program to achieve those business benefits. Now, on the similar pattern, now this chart here showing while the customers are realizing the business benefit by moving into AWS cloud and taking a journey and leveraging the benefits the AWS cloud offer, but using a structured program like a migration acceleration program, or MAP as we call it, it helps to amplify and accelerate those benefits. For example, in this chart, you can see while doing a normal migration without MAP, it helps good cost saving. But if you leverage the benefit the program offers, then you can amplify those cost savings, you can amplify the productivity gains, you can amplify the agility gain. So these are some of the numbers from our analysis by working with in thousands of customers across the globe. To bring home the point again, it's very important to do the cloud migration journey in a structured way, using the best practices approach, leveraging the various learning from the past sort of experiences of the experts in this field. So I'm going to go into a bit more details about this program offers, but this was really important to bring home the point that it's very important to initiate your cloud migration and modernization journey in a structured way using the best practices. So, and how it can amplify your business outcomes. So moving on, right? So cloud migration programs are complex. They can be challenging, right? So and it's again it's quite important. It's almost they are like you require multifunctional team to accelerate your journey into cloud. You need to take care of a lot of foundational activity with your security policies and your operational processes and so on and so forth. Your operating model can change as well. So again, it's important to leverage the best practices, having a right demonstrated leadership, whether it's the top-down business strategy, cloud migration strategy, your organization set it up in partnership with the experts in this area, working with AWS and our experienced partners, or also, as I said earlier, setting the clear business goals is very important, right? Having that top-down momentum, top-down leadership buy-in is very important to make these programs successful. And thirdly, the cloud skills, right? So it's very important to have the best partners in the world, but to be your partner along your journey. Cloud migrations and modernization programs are multi-year programs, and you want to set yourself for success. You want to start early with the right partners, addressing all the right foundational needs, and you need to kind of set it up first. So it's very important to have that multifunctional approach and having the right partners in place to accelerate and be successful in this journey. So, right, I want to go straight into the migration acceleration program now. So this chart here gives an overview of the program, the value proposition of this program. There are 6 areas here, as you can see. I'm going to take a few minutes to give you a bit more insight about these 6 areas, what that means, how it can help you in your journey into AWS. So starting with the top left-hand corner, actually, as the name says, the program is about accelerating your journey into AWS cloud. I also add one more aspect here. This program is also about de-risking that journey. using the various value proposition this program offer. To start with, migration methodology. So migration methodology is a very important aspect in any cloud modernization or migration program. Doing in a structured way, in a controlled fashion is very important. Myself personally, having been led many such cloud migration program, it's very important. And I'm going to give you a bit more insight of what that methodology look like in the subsequent chart. But this methodology has been designed by doing thousands of migration across the globe with the partners, with our customers, to make them successful. So a lot of best practices there. Now, the link to that is the tooling. Tooling is another very important aspect in any cloud migration program, whether it's doing the initial discovery of what you're running on your on-prem solutions and to build a business case, or actually doing the migration using a tool-based approach, if that use case applies to you. Tooling brings a lot of automation. It reduces the dependency of human input. And so it's very important aspect, again, and a very important part in this journey. The third is the AWS partner. We got BBD here. We have a growing list of partners who are eligible for this program, who are migration competency certified in AWS capability. So partners bring a lot of expertise. Partners are the most important part of our ecosystem to make our customers' journey successful. Partners bring not just a lot of technical expertise, but also business expertise as well, industry domain expertise, and also they bring a lot of capability to scale up the cloud migration programs and modernization programs. So very important. Now, the fourth aspect here, the AWS investment. So as part of this program, we offer a number of investment to our customers and partners. Now, the idea or the principle of these investment is to really minimize the cost impact to you as you transition into AWS. They are meant to, as what we call, reduce the double bubble cost, while you may have some existing cost on your existing infrastructure solution. So we want to minimize the cost impact and make the journey smoother financially as well. The next, the value proposition is the AWS training. Now, a lot of the customers are looking to familiarize their retained staff into AWS concepts. And so we bring a lot of accelerators into mix as you onboard into this program to really make your staff comfortable depending on what your needs are, to make that, to fill that knowledge gap as you transition into AWS. Now, the final aspect here in this is the managed services. So managed services is a bit more forward-looking, not necessarily directly in the part of migration. So what is happening is a lot of our customers, once they migrate to AWS, they are looking to position their retained staff into more business differentiating functions and jobs and roles, rather than doing the BAU management of the cloud infrastructure. So if that is your need as well, this could be a very handy offering for you to consider. So you can give that part of the operations to our partners or AWS itself, and that could be very handy for you to channel your resources in the direction of business. If that's what you're leaning to do. Now, this is the overall value proposition this program offers. Now, as you can see, this program covers all the key aspects of any sizable cloud modernization and migration program will have, whether it is looking at the migration methodology, the tooling, the partners, and the cost or the investment available to reduce the cost impact to you. So and this whole package, if you like, of best practices I was saying earlier, has been designed by doing thousands of large scale migration and know what works, right? So it is a very structured program, and we are really excited. We are already working with thousands of partners across the globe using this program and making their cloud journey into AWS successful. I'm gonna move on to give you a bit more insight about what is I mentioned about the migration methodology. So what does that migration methodology looks like? So this is what this chart gives you, is insight into it. So it consists of three phases. The first phase is typically what we call assess phase. So assess phase is really answering the question why you should move into AWS cloud. It is meant to do a high level directional business case to give you what that your total cost of ownership will look like once you move into AWS. It is also meant to give you a assessment, what we call as a migration readiness assessment, and I'm going to go in a bit more detail what that means. But at a high level, migration readiness assessment really means it's a gap analysis study to see which areas you're good at and which areas you need to focus more as you start your cloud migration journey. It's a very important piece in the jigsaw, again, to set yourself up for success. And there are other bits we can do as part of this, is like we can do specialist immersion days or workshops to again to fill some of the knowledge gaps as you start your journey into AWS. So this is mainly the assess phase include. The second phase, what we call is the mobilize phase. So mobilize phase is answering the question of what you need to do to set the foundation right. So assess is why you should move to AWS cloud. Mobilize is what you need to do to set the foundation right. Now, what does that mean? So mobilize phase has a number of key elements, or the foundational activity you want to do. Typically in this phase, you will do detailed discovery and planning. This is where you will define your detailed migration plan. You will define your move groups. You will categorize your application based on logical categories, whether they're similar business function or technology stack, and what are the interdependencies between various application you're moving together and bundle them together. You will prioritize your migration planning. You will look at the various key events in your calendar. We may be having the change calendar and all, but this is where you go into really detail. Then the second aspect is you do what we call as migrate and modernize experience. Essentially, we want to give you a hands-on flavor of it, doing some proof of concept or pilot as part of this journey. So you can migrate a handful of servers and application as part of that to really test the method and the tooling in your context, because we do understand every customer is different. And the other aspect is addressing your training needs, and also addressing your platform needs, whether the security and compliance, looking at the impact on your operating model, setting up your landing zone. So there are a lot of elements around the foundation happens here to again, as I say, to make yourself ready for the scale up. And then the third phase is the migrate and modernize. This is where you will start doing the migration at scale. You will use, depending on your business need and your speed you need, you could use a migration factory based migration approach, and others models as well. So this is where the bulk of the scaling up happens. You start churning and start optimizing your system. So in summary, this is what the migration methodology looks like. It consists of three phases: assess, mobilize, and migrate and modernize. Assess is answering the question why you should move to AWS cloud. Mobilize is answering the question what you need to do, the setting the foundation right. And migrate and modernize is doing it essentially. Now, having said that, this is the best practice model I advise customers to follow. But I also appreciate every customer is different, and every customer is at a different point of time in their cloud migration and modernization journey. So the answer is we can adapt. We can help you wherever you are in your cloud migration journey. Whether you are in your early phases, you're still making up your mind whether to move or not to move to cloud and AWS cloud in specific, or you're beyond that phase. You want to move, you want to do some more detailed planning, you are in a kind of what we call as mobilize phase, or you are ready to migrate. So I'm talking to a lot of customers who are beyond the assess and mobilize phase. They're ready to migrate, and some are in sort of like the mobilize phase, and they've done the business case already. And in some cases, to be honest, the real world is hybrid. In some cases, the customers organization have for certain workloads, they have already made up their mind and they are ready to move to AWS cloud. and for certain workload, they still want to do early assessment or the detailed migration planning. So it could be hybrid as well. Again, this method can be adapted. We are not blindly following that you have to start with SS all the time. So we can join you wherever you are in your journey into AWS cloud. So that's the key message here. So we can adapt and work along your pace and your timeline. So hopefully this gives you a bit more insight what the how the program is structured. One other thing I want to do is highlight here is the typically when you go into mobilize phase as part of the detailed migration planning, you will also do what is the typically you may have many of you may have heard the 7R analysis, because every workload will be different and you may want to have a different application treatments or define their migration journey depending on that. Some maybe you want to do just the rehosting, lift and shift if you like, or some of them you want to re-platform, or some of them you might do modernize, whether it's using containerization approach or many others. So the migration journey will depend on your appetite, how much change you want to consume. It will also depend on individual application context as well. So typically what I've seen from my own experience, typically roughly 20% of the applications are in any application portfolio are business differentiating, and they need to be treated and more carefully, and they need to be strategized, and 70% of the application are normally more business as usual. So you can start into leveraging the cloud benefits by doing a lift and shift approach, for example. And some roughly 10% of the application typically in a portfolio can be retired, so they can be a candidate for immediate cost savings as well by decommissioning those applications. So these are some of the generic numbers I've seen. Obviously every customer portfolio could be different, but this is more or less in that range I've seen personally, and many other my colleagues as well. So just wanted to bring that this is how normally the insight from what we've seen on the application portfolio looks like as part of this journey as well. So moving on, I mentioned about in the SS phase what we do, what we call as a migration readiness assessment. We also call it MRA. So migration readiness assessment is very important. So it's a fundamental step really to prepare you for migration success. As you can see, it is based on 6 categories of AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. We look at not just the technology capability, but your business capability as well. So it is really giving you insight on the areas you're already strong at, and also giving you insight into the areas you need to focus more on as well. And just to give you a bit more insight how that works, we have a questionnaire of around 70 questions, which we share with you and your relevant teams you nominate to get the insight into your current capability and current situation. And then our teams and our partners team will work with you to understand in a short workshop or the thinking behind those answers. And then we come with a actionable roadmap. So it's not just output, is not just like some nice looking charts with some RAG statuses, which is also part of that output. But more importantly, it comes with the actionable roadmap, which you can really start putting into your integrated migration planning and cloud transformation planning to really again address those risks you may be having in your organization as you embark into this journey. So, and that's very important. And the second takeaway from this is also this exercise helps to bring all the stakeholders together. This helps to have an honest discussion with all about the cloud transformation, where the company is, what the status quo is, where you want to go, and what change you will be doing this during this transition. So it's very important to look at in a more comprehensively, both from business and technology perspective, because quite often what I've seen, a lot of organizations make decision within the 4 walls of IT. And the first roadblock you're going to hit is when you start talking to your businesses, because the change is not going to be just limited to your IT organization. It will also be hitting our business colleagues and your business colleagues as this plans out. So it's very important to engage your business stakeholder right early in this phase to get their buy-in as well. And this exercise helps to do that in to get them, all the stakeholders together as well, and which is very important element in any business transformation program really. So I think it's quite important to bring that upfront as well. So this is primarily I wanted to cover today in terms of what the migration acceleration program is and what value it brings to the table. So in summary, I wanted to call it out some of the key aspect about this program. So the migration acceleration program map helps to amplify and accelerate your benefit realization. First of all, it's a very comprehensive program which helps you in every step of your cloud modernization and migration journey. As you have seen, the program not only offers the financial benefits, it's also a framework, comprehensive framework, covering framework around tooling, SMEs, and the partners. So it is a multi-dimensional program. Obviously, financial benefits we offer under this program helps you do the, kind of minimize the cost impact to you without any commitment to you. So one of the important elements which I wanted to leave it with you is that as to onboard in this program, you are not making any hard legal commitment. It's a non-committal program. You're not getting into any lock-in to let's say spend a certain amount with AWS. We have a qualification criteria which will be happy to work with you on a one-to-one basis to onboard in this program, but it's a non-committal program. So for example, you can start with assess phase straight away without any cost to you by using an AWS migration partner like BBD, for example, in this case. So there is without any commitment on your end as well. So it's a very flexible program we have designed to really help you accelerate your journey, address your risk, and get the maximum business benefit, leveraging the benefits and the cost investment and other aspects of this program offers. So this is what really I wanted to leave it with you. It's a program designed, very flexible program. We'll be happy to work with you further to understand your business needs and work with you further to make your journey successful into AWS Cloud.